completed $248,721.88. I think most people don't realize how much it costs to keep this city running properly. And much of what we pay out, some of what we pay out, we get back through property taxes, unless people default on the property taxes. Some of it we never get back, but we can prevent the city from continuing to operate properly. So I would move to approve a total of $328,698.92 in warrants payable.
Second. I have a question.
Mike?
So can we take action without a quorum here?
Well, that's what I'm interested to see. Mary, are you on?
Rob, are you on?
Yes.
Okay, we have a quorum. So it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Cameron? Hoffman?
Yes.
Lyman?
Yes.
Mahan?
Yes.
Weimer?
Yes.
Westwood?
Thank you.
Ordinance 952, administration of a resort tax, public hearing. We will open up the public hearing on the ordinance. Any comments from the public? This is a second reading.
Move to approve ordinance number 950. Oh, I'm sorry.
Any comments from the public? We'll close public comment on the ordinance. No, let's do it.
No. Move to approve ordinance number 952, an ordinance replacing Chapter 4 of Title 2 of the Red Lodge Municipal Code, administrative ordinances governing the collection and reporting of resort tax revenues.
Second.
Discussion.
Well, we've discussed this to death, and I think we've covered all of the questions and all, and we need to get this moved on, I believe.
Any other questions?
I think it looks good. We've already established that we can amend this going forward.
Right. Thank you. Anything else? Roll call.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Lyman?
Yes.
Mahan?
Yes.
Weimer?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. We have a Broadway Avenue closure, Chamber of Commerce discussion. Tim, you want to lead off on this?
Sure. Just regular rules.
Regular rules,
Okay.
state your name and address.
Tim Weimer, 48 Remington Ranch Road, Red Lodge. I think most of you have seen what were the requests that we're up to. I mean, I can read through it again. I would like to add a couple of things. We do have a map.
May I hand out the map?
Yes.
And we've, what I hopefully got emailed around, y'all got a chance to see, the county is supporting the closure. They didn't, did everybody have a chance to read that? They were, I mean, they still have questions because nobody knows how many people that there's going to be there, of course, but they support our goal of creating a little bit more space for people. One thing that we did do in the last couple of days that we just actually finished up about 4:30 this afternoon, is we went and talked to every business, or attempted to talk to every business on Broadway that would be affected. Just some real quick stats of 69 businesses affected. We were able to contact 48 of them, actually speak with 48 of them. We got 46 positives and 2 positives with restrictions. The 2 positives with restrictions, they don't want us to, they would rather it be a later closing. But we've talked to enough people that want it to be an early 11 o'clock closing that we're going to stick with that plan at this point. So I think it was really obvious to us that the retailers, bars, and restaurants are very much into this, as well as most of the community that we've talked to. it's, this was an idea that was born by Diane Dimich. I think she was the first one to float it. I know that the county health or economic people got together, Tom Coley, Tom Kuntz, and Bill George. They discussed this. They want to do it. I've talked personally with all three of them. They're all very much into it. I've talked to everybody in the city except for the mayor, I think, in the offices. You were gone that day. And I think we've come up with a really, really good plan. The bars all understand that they are going to be responsible for controlling their crowd, whether they're inside or outside. No, another thing that we did, we got later this week, or the first part of this week, was approval from the state to do it, to follow through with the plan as well. I don't really have a lot other than that to add to what we've already given you on paper. We're committed to doing this right. There's a lot of work yet to be done, of course, with working with the city for routing and parking. But we have a pretty good plan put together for parking as well. And what we're going to do is the 4th of July, there's going to be a lot of places that are closed on the 4th of July. Taking advantage of some of those empty parking lots is something we're going to be all about, of course. Any questions or comments, concerns?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's a good idea. I recognize it doesn't take the place of the 4th of July parade, but then nothing does. But this is something that could be very helpful to the business community. And once you've done this, then you'll have a plan that you can put into place if there's another emergency that we have to address. So thank you, Tim, for the work, and thanks for the chamber for the work that they put into this.
Any other questions? Questions from the public? Anything else for me?
So I have a question. It's listed on there as discussion. Are you able to take action to give us permission to move forward?
We did put it down as action. Actually, Broadway Avenue is the state, is the state. Most of the time you just, even with Christmas stroll, comes in as, are we okay with it? Let's move on. So.
And that's, go ahead, Sherry.
Montana Department of Transportation said if I was helping, because they know my record with Christmas stroll, and if the city council was in agreement and the city was helping with the closures on each end, they were in full approval. So we just need your, I guess.
Just need a head nod.
Yeah.
Where you at on that? Micah?
Great idea. Get some revenue to these businesses down.
Lori?
Yes, I'm in favor of it. I think it's an excellent idea. As I said, doesn't take the place of the 4th of July parade, but it's better than nothing, far better than nothing. And once it's accomplished, then they have a plan in place if there's another emergency.
Robbie, where are you at on it?
As I visited with Charlie at the Snow Creek, he was hoping to still be able, will they still be able to have their music on the side street?
No.
Why?
The county wouldn't okay that.
Rob,
That was his fee.
I can address that, Robbie. When we were talking to Dr. George about this, I mean, he just said explicitly, he said, Weimer, you are not going to turn this into a street dance. And so that's, it was pretty strong. And it's the idea of this is more to be able to spread people. I've talked to Charlie about, this is kind of off topic, but somewhat on the same. I've talked to Charlie about the rally, and if it go to phase 3, they suggested perhaps he come back with the street dance if it's on phase 3, but in phase 2, it's just still an impossibility. And that's one of those things. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the county health official thinks.
Yeah. I just wanted to know, or let it be known, what he was hoping for, and that when will phase 3 come into effect? Will it be in time for the Harley Rodeo?
Nobody has an idea on that, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Still up in the air. Gotcha. Okay.
So are you okay with closing
That's all.
for the 4th of July? Rob,
Pardon?
are you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you have our blessing. Tom?
I'm just curious. We're seeing more and more traffic out of towners coming through, heading up the highway or down. So do you think we're going to be able to handle the flow out the side streets to get them the state highway?
Well, I think the fact that we have, 2 ways they can go, and it's, this is something that we work with the city, and we hope. One of the things that I've known, living here as long as I have and being in the kind of tourism business, I've noticed that, Red Lodge is a destination on the 4th, more than it is a flow through on the 4th. And while I agree with you, there is going to be traffic that direction, and that was the first thing that the Montana Department of Transportation. We have a great street here that's plenty wide. After talking with the chief, we feel that we can pull this off. And one of the ideas that we have, and I don't know that this is what we're going to do, because now we'll sit down and build the rest of that plan approval. But it's like, folks should be like, if you're aiming to park, let's park up above. If you're looking to go through, come down flat. And whether that's a workable suggestion or not, I don't know, but that's just one thought.
I'm in favor of it, definitely, but Sunday morning, I was going towards the buildings coming this way, solid traffic. Now, many out of staters with camp going home, we're heading up. And some of them will divert here because something's going on. But hopefully the state patrol will send some extra people to help with that.
And it's busy, and we've been closing down Broadway at that time for how many years? So it's, it's like nobody disagrees with your community. It is completely looking at. My goal, our goal, is for this to become something that is possible to do in the future as well.
Yeah.
Which means that we are going to make sure that we do it right.
So if it goes well.
Yeah, we are going to do everything we can. We're going to come up with every possibility for something to go wrong and have a solution for it before it ever happens. It's, this is not something we're taking lightly because of the sheer numbers. I've seen it. I'm shocked this year. I don't remember the streams being that way.
I don't either. I don't remember ever seeing as many people on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
All the way home. Oh, yeah. This way.
Yeah. And that's, one of the reasons why the county health people felt it was important to block. And so if we don't do that, they're going to be on our sidewalks, they're going to be in our restaurants, they're going to be in our bars. And this allows social distancing to spread. And I think I no other way to do it other than putting up a sign and yell. It was Red Lodge's way. It wouldn't work anyway.
I think Colleen has some statements up there.
It's cutting out and it's not, we which I think it's raw. It's,
Oh, okay,
you can just hear a little.
okay.
And this isn't going to attract 12,000 people like the 4th of July parade, but it will attract some people, and it will be a great help to the businesses.
Almost every single business I talked to was very enthusiastic. And even the ones I mean, there's some that have already made adjustments within their businesses to where they've made themselves able to be back at their capacity. You know, the same capacity they had before, which is what their kitchen and cruiser set up for. But the bar's real excited about it, of course. And, you know, I mean, shutting it down, basically it'll be shut down right after the fireworks, so it'll be fairly early. So, the end of the evening.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Something I forgot to mention at the beginning here, want to thank some people. They've been helping up at Coal Miners Park, VRTA, Red Lodge Mountain, and MCC have been up there working on the trails. And just want to give them a thank you for helping us out up there. Move on to the skate park update on funding and park upgrades. Kevin?
Thanks for having me. I'll keep this short.
State your name, please, and your address.
Kevin Long, 119 South Hagen.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you an update on our funding and our anticipated build date and where we're at with that. We were shooting for $200,000, but currently our funding is at $115,000. We had a sizable donation from Montana Pool Service. They don't build pools. So they wanted skate parks, and they gave us $50,000  2 weeks ago. So that puts us at 150. We're hoping to we were hoping for another 85,000. It looks like we're going to be closing in a very short window because we anticipate tentatively to start the project in 17th, maybe. That's when you'll need to see a plan. He's going to have that. We do have a concept drawing, but I just got off the phone with him, and he has manipulated the plan so that potentially we will have to remove the slab. Even though the slab removal was going to be done by Beartooth Electric. And this last week, I talked to James and Jim Bushnell about storm drainage. There really isn't any over there, but with this change in the design, we'll be able to run the water off the slab the way it is, which all runs north towards the Boys and Girls Club and down toward night. That's what he told me. So I think he's trying to make it work for us, and I think he will make it work for us. It's just a matter of timing. I know that he would not do it unless the money available to pay him for that. So he knows he's going to get paid for his time of the monies that are coming from Western Montana. So he's working on the design, hopefully next week. And when I get those plans, they'll be available for everybody to see. Otherwise, we just keep pushing on, selling t-shirts and spreading the word. And Ryan Rummel has done an excellent job of advertising this thing. Just got an order for 2 t-shirts today from Florida, from I don't know how that happened, but people in Bozeman, he reached out to them, and village people reached out to them, and then we have another article coming out, which explains a lot of more detail in the charity chat on Thursday.
How much did you say y'all have now?
It's about 115,000,
150.
give or take a picture.
I thought you said 150.
I would, we actually have enough, that's enough money to build a structure right now. There's one donor specified what he would like to see. And he's a skater. A lot of influence. I think he's going to pay builder directly. And so he wants a feature to be put in the park, which will be old school. He called it a keyboard. And I went, what? So talking through it with the builder, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm not a skater, but he's, it's school. These are guys are going to modify it, and they do the best work of anyone we could probably get.
Oh,
So they know what it means, and so they know they're ready to. Once he gets it designed, he'll make it all come together. That's where I'm at.
Very good. Good job.
Thanks.
How long does it take them once they get started? Do you know? When?
Weather dependent, but I'm hoping for less than a month. Okay. The volunteers will probably have to do some. We are committed to make a finished product. If we use the existing slab, that'll be great because then it'll probably fit all the way into the slab, and we won't have hardly anything. We have talked to Jim, and he said that he will haul some material if we need to. Although my discussion with the builder, he said don't haul anything because I think I'll try to use all the material that's structured. Really good.
Awesome.
The goal for $200,000, I could say $500,000.
We'll build 100. All right. And that's it out. Because he can do that. He's done that before. He's got one going now in and another one going in Lincoln, I think at the same time. And they've been from me on building this thing, so anything else?
Very good. Thank you very much. Like I said, great job.
I want to
Thank
say,
you.
I just want to thank you and your group for continuing to work on this. I think it's a superb project. I know the whole town will be happy for it, the kids in particular. It's a big project. You've got some problems and some issues, I realize, but for you to keep pushing on this is absolutely excellent. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the community to continue to push for this.
Welcome. Thank you guys for supporting us on this thing. We won't have to fix any wood structures anymore. It'll be all smooth concrete and iron. And the parks that they have they attract as many kids as this one. Ryan Rummel, who's been working on it real hard for Father's Day, he still skates. I'm not allowed. I'm like the guy in the Twizzler commercial, I'm too old. Skateboarding, and I get an answer for that every single time. Just my wife. Forget about it. Doing it for them. He went to Livingston on Father's Day. He said there were more kids skating in the skate park there than there were in the pool. Nothing to take away, not to be taken away from this. The kids that come and skaters that come from Bozeman and from Dillon's to skate Livingston, because it's a rather large park that they did, and it's really, really nice. And everybody there is. He handed out a lot of stickers for Hellline Skate Park.
Well, thanks again.
Welcome. Thank you.
Next item is use of land permit for water sport for July 17th and 18th. Want to give us an overview?
Probably not be in action tonight, but that's okay. So I've changed a couple of things kind of from my initial application. I want this to be a private party, but it's private property, a lot of it still down there. The reason I want to be here is for any type of crowd control we might have. The big thing with blocking that, a lot of people drive right on through there, and there's a lot of people, a lot of pedestrians. And that's, and because it's control as far as organized chaos versus unorganized with distancing, and there's more room for people to spread out that I do invite to the party. This is an invite only private party that I'll be having. And I can go both ways with it. I can do it without the street closure, with the street closure, but I want to down there so organized. And so I think the only thing I want it to be Alley Cooper, so that stays the same. We checked in with all the neighbors, they're still all good. And I'll just get a couple porta potties. This is not an advertised event. This is me and so. About it. Any questions?
Okay. Yeah, Micah.
It's not normally that way, so why they changed this year?
Well, because of all the COVID things and the health, Bill Bullock and Bill George came, they were really about social distancing.
Count.
The county, yes. So I initially had made my application for the city, but every day I go out there and I look, and I can have my party, I can have my band, I can do it all on private property, but I really like that street closure for, the biggest thing is the through traffic. People want to drive through, they want to creep by, and there's a lot of people that will be on foot, so I'm just doing it for safety reasons. If I don't get approved, that's okay too. I just, I don't know. It's all on my private property, but
I'm gonna be anyway. Oh, just because we still come right from the town.
people are coming anyway. The fact that the rally is not being advertised that 5 years, just what do we do? And people, what do you do with the crowd control once they're there? So that's something we have to address. The Snow Creeks, because they're completely on city property, is not able to, he's decided to not do his thing. So I get to the point where I know enough people as far as people coming to town. They're going to be at my shop anyway. So that's kind of where I stand with it right now.
What is the time frame? In hours?
Just between 6 and 10. But I want the street closure all day, Friday through Saturday, midnight, or Saturday, I think it was Saturday, 10 p.m. I can't remember what I wrote here.
Yeah.
I would just have music going from 6 to 10. So I'm done at 10. But I need time to take down my cattle guard fence. And
How many years have you been doing this now?
5.
Yeah. And you've never had a problem with the neighborhood or with the people attending?
No, when I was actually telling my neighbors that I was thinking of not doing it, they were all like, no. And so they all think it's great. I have a great neighborhood down there.
Seems to me, as I remember, it's been very well received by the neighborhood.
Well, and it's very, I make a point of being very organized. And we have our own, Usually on normal years, I have our security there. We never have a problem. So it's, like I said, it's organized chaos versus full-on chaos. You know, if people come to town, what are they going to do? It's kind of like the 4th of July. You have this, I mean, you have the street closure, you have you have the social distancing, if we do votes, we have that going on. It's just, how can we not bring people to town, but the people that are already here, how can we control what's going on? And would you rather control them or not? And the bars and the restaurants can only hold so many people. The reason why we started having street closures to begin with during the rally was for crowd control. Was the main reason. So people were outside, they had more room to breathe instead of being in the bar just scrunched up, and it's hot, it's in there. It's just an easier flow. So that's kind of the history on the street closures anyway for the rally.
Thanks.
We move this forward to action item.
I think so. It makes sense to me.
Yes, sir.
The next meeting is.
Robbie, are you willing to move this forward?
I just had one thing. I see it as a good thing that it's outdoors, plenty of fresh air. I don't see why the Snow Creek situation, the street alongside music, it's outdoors, fresh air. People aren't squeezed into a bar. It just seems, I don't see why that's a bad thing in this. They seem like the same, is all I'm saying. That's it.
Do you want to move this forward?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have the greenhouse gas inventory presentation and report.
Robin, if that doesn't work, we can try this one, if it won't work.
Yeah, I've shared the screen on that before, but I don't see any reason. I'll have to be the presenter on this one. So if I create that. I'll just need 1 second. I gotta log into my drive on here too. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Robin Adams. I'm the Energy Corps member for the city of Red Lodge. And I'm here to give a presentation on the Red Lodge Community Greenhouse Gas Inventory. It's written up in a report, and this will be a little PowerPoint. I'm also just gonna give a couple of quick updates on projects I'm working on since I haven't talked with council since February. So briefly, just finished up the ordering window for Fetch the Rain program. And I'll see if I can go full screen. It's full screen on mine. Is that okay for everybody if it's that size here? Okay. So basically, this is a program that could allow residents within the city of Red Lodge to build and install rain barrels for their homes. And a rain barrel is just a 55-gallon drum that you hook up to your gutter, and it collects rainwater. Originally, we had a cap of 30 and then sold out those within 4 days, and so got offered to donate 20 extra. So our final numbers are 51 barrels sold to 36 households, which is great, went really well. We had people on the wait list. Unfortunately, we had to say, sorry, we're out of barrels, so I'm hoping that this can happen again next year. And if each barrel saves 1,300 gallons annually, that's 66,000 gallons every year being saved and diverted from our wastewater treatment plant, which is saving the taxpayer dollar on energy that's wasted treating that water as if it's wastewater when it's really raining. And so really quickly, this is from our stormwater report. All of those red sections are areas where water is going straight into our sewer system. And then this is a map of all of the Catch the Rain participants. So you can see there's a lot of overlap between those two. And those little, they're very, very small, but there's little dots that show the specific problem areas, and there's also a lot of overlap there. So even though it's not a lot of water saved in terms of a million gallons per day that's making it over there, I think it's also an education opportunity for people to understand why stormwater diversion is important for us. Quick plug, also just a little update on how the LED retrofit is going. The city has retrofitted all 235 lights owned by Northwestern Energy, and this is a program that Northwestern Energy is doing throughout the state of Montana, and we're one of the first cities to undergo this project. And so that graph on the bottom right is the cost. So you can see we're up here, and now we're almost over $1,000 a month lower than we were before. So it looks like our savings is going to be even more than the $9,000 that we originally estimated. So super awesome. And thanks a lot to past Energy members and the mayor, city council, everyone involved for years in trying to get this project done. And then also really quickly, I've been working with the Sustainability Board to put together a project to install a 28 kilowatt array on the police station. So this would offset 100% of the electricity in both City Hall and police station, and that's over $4,000 a year in energy savings. And the project cost would be over $90,000, but we can fund that through community fundraisers, like a Buy a Panel fundraiser, where people will have the opportunity to chip in $100 per panel. We're planning on applying to the Northwestern Energy USB grant, and that's the same one that funded the library solar, and that will cover up to 90% of the cost. And then another thing I think is really interesting, I'm getting very excited about, is energy performance contracting. And so we could lump this solar project in with a bunch of other energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in the city, and then go with one contractor, and they basically guarantee a certain amount of savings from that energy project, and then you use the guaranteed savings to pay for the project itself. So an engineer is actually coming on Friday to take a look at all of the city facilities. And this is just sort of a simplified version of what I mean. So you have a certain amount of operating costs, and then you have the construction cost plus the savings from that project. And then you use a little bit of the savings to pay for the project each year, and it's extended out into like a 15 to 20 year. And then by the end of it, you just have the savings after you've paid off all of that project cost. So you'll probably be hearing more about that once I get past this feasibility stage, and whether when I meet with that engineer, if we can determine if we would be a good fit or not, then action will be taken by the council later on. Okay, so now what I actually am here for is the community greenhouse gas inventory. So Catherine Eklund collected all of this data back in 2018. And it is a measurement of all of the emissions from everything within the city limits of Belle Lodge. So that's basically anything that you can think of, every single house, every commercial building, all of the transportation, all of the solid waste that we generated, all of the water and wastewater is all accounted for. And basically the point of it is to have a baseline so that later on, when any mitigation acts are done, you can tell, okay, we have lowered our emissions and this is where we were before. And this is exactly what the city has already done with the City Energy Conservation Plan. But the only difference there is our baseline assessment only had to do with city operations. So we didn't look at any residential homes, any businesses, the hospital, nothing like that. And so our summary, basically the most energy use and the most emissions came from buildings. And so that's both residential and commercial together make up over 80% of all of our emissions. So that's a huge chunk. 10% from transportation, and then a little chunk from solid waste, and a smaller one from water and wastewater. And so just to kind of contextualize what 20,814 metric tons of carbon dioxide means, that's the same amount of carbon that would need to be sequestered by 27,000 acres of pine tree forests. And so that's roughly 14 red lodges filled with pine trees would be what you need to take the carbon out of the atmosphere that we put into it. So it is a significant amount. It's also not uncommon for cities to have a significant amount of emissions. The methodology here, everything is from the calendar year 2016. Everything is from within city limits. We also included the water and wastewater treatment plants as in boundary, even though technically they're outside the city. And then we use software to just input the energy data, and then it spits out the emissions data for us. We don't have to work too hard. There's multiple scopes included, and what that means is that we're not just looking at emissions happening straight from, like they're not just getting emitted within the city. We also looked at activities that might cause emissions in other places. So a good example of that would be for solid waste. We generate the waste and our activities contribute to the waste, but it all goes to Billings, which is technically outside of the city boundary, but we still account for that in this emissions inventory. Okay, so just very quickly, most of the residential emissions came from natural gas, with only 40% coming from electricity. And our overall energy usage per household is higher than the national average by a lot, which makes sense because we use a lot of natural gas to heat in the winter. So I also compared it to the Mountain North average, which is in the middle there. And so we're also still actually higher energy use compared to other areas in the region. So my theory for this would be that there's a lot of second homeowners in Red Lodge that use natural gas even when they're not here throughout the heating season. And I think Glory also mentioned it could just be a lack of education when it comes to energy efficiency methods and installation and weatherization services. So I think that it has great potential to be lowered, because it's 45% of the overall emissions in our community. I'm going really fast, so if anyone has questions, yeah, go ahead.
Just a clarification.
Yeah.
Did I hear you say earlier that you didn't actually take any air quality samples? All you did was input all this salt?
Yeah, you got it. And that's the same methodology that we used for the City Energy Conservation Plan, and it was also written to a basic reporting level for, actually let me look up the name of it, the Global Protocol for Community Scale Greenhouse Gas Emission Inventories. So it's a pretty standard way to do it. Commercial energy is the opposite proportion, mostly electricity use contributing to the emissions, with only 30% coming from natural gas. And even though they're a smaller overall chunk of the emissions at 37%, their per capita emissions are much higher at 15 metric tons of carbon dioxide per building. And notice I say building and not business, because this includes all the city buildings, it includes the schools, it includes the hospital, it includes nonprofits, and it could even include someone's garage or something like that, anything that's not coded as residential. But one of these commercial buildings implementing energy saving measures is going to have a higher impact because their per capita emissions are over double that of the residential households. Transportation was only 10% of our community emissions, and so this includes anybody driving on Highway 212. So that could be residents, that could be commuters, that could be tourists, visitors, and you can see that the vast majority is from gasoline transportation, but we also included diesel travel, and there's a tiny sliver that is from the airport. And that was measured just by seeing how much fuel was sold to the airport in the year 2016. Apparently, they only have one supplier for fuel, so it wasn't too hard to figure that out. And so the annual vehicle miles traveled in total was 4.8 million. And again, that includes all local employee and visitor traffic. I think one of the best ways to lower this would be to increase the electric vehicle infrastructure and also just knowledge of that infrastructure that we already have here. In 2016, I didn't include any of the data from the electric vehicle chargers just because they got installed more than halfway through the year and they only charged like 1,000 miles that year. But later on, in 2019, they charged like 19,000 miles. So that could be included in the future. Solid waste. So this is a smaller chunk of the total emissions, and that's partly because the Billings landfill has a methane collector. And if they didn't have that, which captures the gas before it can get emitted into the atmosphere and they use it for energy, this would be a lot higher. In this chart here, instead of the breakdown of where the emissions come from, it's actually a measure of how much we recycled versus how much we sent to the landfill. So that huge chunk of 96%, that's how much waste we sent to the landfill, and we only diverted 4%, which is very small. And just to kind of drive that home, the national average for the percentage that they're recycling is 35%. In Montana, it was 17%, and then in Red Lodge, it's 4%. And so this is very small. It's gone up since Recycle Red Lodge took over, but it's still only 5% in 2019. So increasing recycling is definitely a great way to increase our waste diversion rate. And finally, water and wastewater. This information was very easy to pull because we already had recorded it in the city energy conservation plan. But again, most of these emissions are coming from electricity and natural gas, and most of that is in processing and treatment. But that could go down even more once we get our stormwater diversion plan implemented, because 45% of the water in the spring could be snow melt and rain going into the wastewater treatment plant, which is basically just saying that you're paying 45% more than you need to be on treatment of this water because it's not wastewater, it's stormwater. And then another factoid, 40% of the treated fresh water in Red Lodge is lost on its way to the intended home or business. And so we have plans in the CIP and in the Stormwater Master Plan that we need to implement in order to correct these. And so this is the business as usual projected emissions. This is based off of a 1% population growth and a 1.7% commercial growth. And so, you know, it's a model, so it's not right. Growth rates aren't going to be exactly the same every year, and the per capita emissions aren't going to be exactly the same. But given past trends, it just gives us a good idea of what things could look like. So based off of those growth rates, we could be looking at a 50% increase in our emissions by 2050. And commercial emissions are going to a significant amount of that because if you remember, their per capita emissions are so high and their growth rate is also fairly high. And so this, I can tell already, is a little bit off because we've done a couple of things since 2016, like the community solar program and a lot of the city's emission reduction efforts, like our VFDs and solar on the library. So it is going to be a little bit lower, but this is just the business as usual. And ways to mitigate this effect and to make sure that we're not just on an upward slope is to create some kind of a community climate action plan. And this is a map of all of the communities in Montana that have made such plans and are starting to implement them. You'll see that Red Lodge is actually on that list, and that's for our city energy conservation plan. And so my hope wouldn't be for the city to spearhead this and put in the planning power to do this, but that a community group would take it up and that the city will support them on it. Just because we have our city energy conservation plan and there's a lot of things in there that could very easily be applied to the community at large, and I think it would be really helpful for the development of that plan for us to be involved. And I didn't mention the Montana climate assessment. I usually do. That's included in our growth policy, and it basically just kind of states why we should care about climate change as a community. Some of the projections are, we're looking at, more variability in snowpack and increased intensity of wildfire seasons and more bark beetles destroying vegetation in the forests and things like that. And so that's why we should care, because it's going to affect us directly here if we do nothing about it. So that is all I got. Does anybody have any questions?
What's your thinking on, is it population growth or use by people, more people spending more time here? Or is it infrastructure getting older that's leading to this increased growth?
So
is there something that, in other words, can you point to something and say, if we can solve this problem, we can level that off?
Just from this model, I can say it's only based off of population growth, which is from census data, estimating it's like 1% a year. But yeah, there's not going to be any silver bullet, like we just do this one thing and taper it off. It's going to require a pretty, I don't want to, interdisciplinary is the wrong word, but a multifaceted actions happening at once.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Rob.
it hits me when Robin was talking about our ability to recycle here in Red Lodge compared to the rest of the United States or whatever. It sure seems like we should educate ourselves and concentrate on that. It is like $38,000 a month we spend to get our garbage hauled out of here. If we were recycling, we could be saving that money, saving, just every direction you look at that part of it. And I way like the water, catching water in water barrels and all that. All the things we can do. I would just hope we could recycle better. Being I'm a grandpa now, kind of save the world a little bit. That's it.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be around, so feel free to ask me any questions if they come up.
I just want to say I had my first meeting with the group last week, and they're a small group, but very impressive. They're working hard. And I appreciate everything that they're doing. And I believe in many cases, they're really, truly on the right track. Keep it up, kiddo.
And we appreciate you, Lori.
Mayor, was I supposed to go to that meeting? Did I sign up? I think I.
You can go anytime you want, Rob.
Okay. It seems like I signed up for something, and this was a meeting or two ago, and my senility, I didn't make it there.
Yeah, Glory is going, and she's taking that over.
Yes.
But
Okay, good.
want, Rob.
No, I trust Glory to handle that.
Okay. Use of city-owned land exemptions related to the COVID-19. Just want to start out that we've had some groups that want to use the baseball fields for Zumba classes, and we have the rallies coming up. And James, do you want to kind of fill in what this is about?
I asked to put this on the agenda as a discussion item, based mainly off a phone call or email I received last Wednesday by somebody who wanted to do the infield on one of the baseball field. And so by people know if they're sale of goods or services, they need to follow the use of city-owned lands application. And I just thought we should have a discussion about it, especially for bricks and mortar businesses who are currently operating in business in Red Lodge. Have the discussion of is there a way we may exempt some of them from the use of city-owned lands process if we know that they can properly space. For example, if athletic Zumba and yoga, those types of businesses where they're exercising and get them out in the parks and let businesses use those parks during the summer, especially this summer. But also potentially restaurants, if restaurants could do outdoor seating at, say, Lions Park, and they wanted to use the park for 3 hours on a Saturday, is that something that the council may be willing to do without doing the use of city-owned lands permit process? I know, one of the big questions would be crowd control, how spaced out they are. So I think it would have to be the type of business where there's set seating or a very limited number of people. But I wanted to at least get that conversation going and have the council think about that, whether they'd be in favor of it or not, but at least give it some consideration.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't have a problem with that, except that, it's might be these are all, essentially you're talking, are these profit-making operations or not?
They are. So normally, if it's a profit-making operation, they would have to pay $100 a day to use that space. And part of the reason why we have that $100 a day fee is if somebody a vendor wants to set up a park, and they compete with a brick and mortar business, well, we need to be protecting our downtown businesses. What makes Red Lodge special is our downtown, obviously. And so we don't want to let certain businesses come in by not having, they don't have to pay property taxes, they don't have to pay utilities, they don't mortgage. So that is a way to kind of level the playing field if somebody wants to be a vendor in a park, for example, or sell things in the park. So I do personally, I think if the council were to consider an exemption for this, I think it should only be for brick and mortar businesses, not outside vendors who are currently not operating a business. They need to have a business license already. They need to have an actual business in town in order to do it. That's would be my recommendation. It shouldn't be voided for everybody who wants to do anything. Certain ones that we can be confident that there's not going to be capacity issues, that they can space, and that they're an existing business already.
Go ahead, Mark.
James, this is a plan that could be used for other emergencies or other problems that might arise.
Certainly, yeah.
So it's not just for COVID-19, it could be for other. And that's to me is important. If we don't have emergency procedures in place, it could be used for any number of emergencies. That this is a good thing. You know, whatever we can do to alert people, educate people, and keep them safe. Thank you for doing that.
Micah, thoughts?
I think we're being inconsistent. I think they should have to fill out the city land use application and pay the fee.
Rob, do you have any input in this?
Bill, when it was mentioned about parks and yoga and this and that, at the Parks Board meeting the other night, it was mentioned that Coal Miners Park, the grass is getting pretty overgrown. It doesn't really, that just popped into my mind, you know, spreading people out, making all the parks usable. And I don't know, you know, how often a summer, if that's a weekly thing or bi-weekly. But anyways, that just popped into my mind.
Okay.
That's it.
Any other discussion from the public on this?
I agree with Micah.
Thank you.
I think it might be hard to, at some point, you're gonna have to make a decision. Well, is this, you know, this one is obviously the extension of mortar business long-term. This one is obviously not, and somewhere in the middle there, it's gonna be hard to determine. It's gonna be slippery slope, I think.
Could be.
On the other hand, you do have, there is a point, you know, trying to get people spread out, so.
No, it was up for discussion, so you kind of know, where everybody's at on that. And so let's just keep thinking on it.
That's the kind of thing that you have to think about quite a bit.
Oh, you have to think about it a lot. You're right there. Any other discussion? All right. Let's move on to resolution 3548, public visibility into budget development process. The council person that brought this forward is not here today. You want to give us a quick overview, Rebecca?
Yes, sir. The only thing that I know about it is Dave asked me to finish it up for him because what he gave me was just words and not an actual resolution. So I did that, and my understanding is that, I don't know if it was Dave or all of the council or what, we're wanting department heads to give I guess kind of an explanation of where the money goes and what their department does, and limit to a 20 to 30 minute time. I told him I'd probably need at least an hour to go through everything that I do on a daily basis. And so I kind of did it around that. They wanted, he wanted to put in there like dates that when the preliminary budget would be posted online, and Lonnie just recommended doing like saying a certain month, like May, because if she put a date in it, and this is kind of going to be a perpetual resolution, then that date might end up on a weekend or something. So she just wanted to put the May on there, and then when we have updated drafts, that's when they're updated, that they be posted online. And then I think I might have added paragraph number 3, which is the public comment, because, you know, if people want to ask questions, that's great, but you might want to not have somebody have the floor for 15 or 20 minutes drilling or asking any one particular department a lot of questions, because then we would be here forever. Be one of those meetings you'd have to adjourn and pick it back up another time. So I just put that in there to do as you do, as the standard the council does with public comments, is try to limit everybody so that everybody has a chance to speak. And that's all I know about it.
Micah.
little bit that I know, the genesis of it is constituent feedback. You get a lot of feedback from the public wanting something like this, and they've decided to put together and bring it forward. I think it's a great idea. As far as the department budget presentation, I'll speak for the two that I'm a part of. Public Works, we hear from all the time. So if we didn't hear his, my feelings probably would be hurt. But I know that the library would jump at the chance to have their 30 minutes and kind of explain their budget and how the funding between the city and the county are commingled. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions there. So I know that they would love their 30 minutes. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback also about the budget. When are we going to see it? A lot of, I wouldn't say criticism, but a lot of concern about various parts of the budget, public works, police, and so on. And I think that it would be very useful to have chief describe to me, or to describe to the public what he described to me. I spent an hour and a half with him the other day. And by the way, he told me that I was the first council person who'd ever come to speak to him in the 2 years he's been here. And he opened my eyes on a lot of stuff. A few things I didn't agree with, but you know, I mean, we're looking at the police $632,000, some cents. Retirement, that sort of thing. So it's a huge section. I think it is the biggest chunk that we have to deal with. And it's easy to look at that and say, you know, in fact, to be honest with you, I think I probably would too when I first put the stocks. But when you actually look at it close up and you see what happened, and how it's covers, it's not that easy, in my view, to find places you can chop it. Well, if you just publish this, you know, here's an example, you publish this online, a lot of people are going to look at that and say, holy smoke, that's unbelievable. But when you actually look at it in terms of the coverage that we have to have, that we need to have, the cost of training and the cost of patrol cars, et cetera, insurance, and all that sort of thing, it starts to look like there's not a lot of fat on it. There's some, perhaps, but not much, in my view. So I think it would be very useful to have the chief be available either in a public forum like this or through some sort of online discussion that he could elaborate on some of this, because I know there's going to be questions on it.
Sure. So you're in favor of carrying this forward, resolution? Lori?
I don't see much different than what we've been doing for a long time. This is just spelled resolution form. We've always given the public an opportunity to come to the meetings, to listen to the discussions. We've always had department heads coming to the meetings and doing their number with what it is. This perhaps spells it out. I was a little surprised when it says public notice work meeting, a presentation of between 20 and 30 minutes, but no more than 1 hour to educate and inform both the city council and public about their department's budget. And that's directed to the department heads. 1 hour is way too long. I think that's a gross exaggeration. Most of the presentations are right around maybe 15 minutes tops. And if there's a lot of questions for any reason, it could be extended. But we've been doing this for a long time. Bonnie, you've been doing yours. You've been doing your presentation. James, you've been doing yours. I know that Jim Bushnell has been doing his for a long time, and certainly the police chief. And I agree, Jason, our wonderful chief, the more he tells people, the more they understand about what's going on. And like you said, you didn't always agree with everything he said. And we're never going to have a budget from any of the departments that's agreed upon by 100% of the people, because each person has their own focus on what they think is the most important. I use the parks maintenance as an example that has reared its head recently, that they really need some more money there. I don't object to having things written down like this. I just want to make sure that we're not tying anybody's hands for the future. I know that we can change resolutions, but I want to make sure that we know what we're doing to give the department heads as much leeway as they need to explain their budget and present it to the council and the public. The public has always been invited to these meetings. Sometimes they show up, most of the time they don't. So we can't twist their arms by making a resolution that this is going to happen. So don't expect a whole lot of people to come to the meetings where the budgets are being discussed. Most of them have their own preferences. They don't understand the process. I didn't understand the process either before I started sitting at this table. And it's complex. It's not like your home budget. It's not like your home business budget. It's totally different. People forget that we have to abide by rules and regulations that come from the state and from the feds. So it's a whole different deal. If we got half a dozen more people to come to the budget meetings to have, because of this resolution, I'd be a little surprised. The people who come to them are going to come to it no matter what there is. Like I said, I don't object to it, but let's just make sure that we're not tying our hands. And this is a beautiful little chart here that tells us all the places where we have to go, with all the little arrows telling us that we start here and go down here and then here and then here and then here. It's highly unlikely that this is going to be, that we're going to be able to stick to this 100%, because things interfere with that. And let's keep in mind that the mayor has a lot to say about the budget. So let's make sure that when we get to the point where we might approve something like this resolution, we're not tying anybody's hands, we're not expecting something that cannot be delivered, and that we're making it, even to the city council and the department heads, very much transparent and visible to everybody.
So you're in favor of moving it forward?
Yeah.
Okay. Rob, resolution 3548, are you in favor of moving this forward?
Yes.
Mayor, can I?
Sure.
I agree with almost everything Lori just said. This is the responsibility of the citizens of this city to engage in the budget process. But apparently we have a small group of people out there who don't feel like they've been included or can be included. So that's what this is about, an attempt to bring them in. That's all this is.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify that too. The feedback that I get on the street, email and so on, has more to do with what people perceive as not being transparent or being, visible somehow than they do with a specific line item. And I don't know what to say about that. That just sort of anything we can do to make that, bring people in, give people a chance to look over, defend, or whatever would be useful, I think.
Jim.
Just like to say, as a citizen who periodically comes to meetings and will sit through to the bitter end, I think the city is incredibly transparent. I honestly don't understand the complaints of transparency. I don't understand maybe their definition of transparency. I think they're wanting something that is impossible. There's never been a question that I've asked the city that I haven't gotten an answer to. There's never been a single issue that I've ever felt has been hidden from me. There's never been anything that I haven't felt that I could just walk in and, maybe I'm special, or maybe I'm just pushy, but I'll just go right up to James' office and ask him a question. And if I want something, I'll go ask Lonnie or I'll call him on the telephone. And so I think if they have an issue with transparency, I challenge them to stand up and go ask a question rather than sit in a corner and complain. And that's obviously my personal opinion, only based on what I've been through coming to city council meetings. I think that the city's as transparent as it could be. It's like the only way you're ever going to satisfy everybody is to go to everybody's house individually, sit down, have dinner and a cocktail with them and explain to them what the heck's going on. Other than that, you just don't stand a chance. Somebody's going to say, well, I missed that. So anyway, I think the city's doing a fine job. And push it through if it makes you all feel better. I have no opinion on that. I just wanted to state, I think the city's plenty transparent. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead, Rob.
What I've been hearing a lot is directed at the police department. And I was shown today on a state average per population of a town, how many police officers do we have?
7.
I don't even know. 7?
Yes.
For our population, it shows like 4. And I realize, you know, we being a resort town where we have a lot of out-of-town people coming and going, and that's just kind of the big thing that I keep hearing. And, you know, I don't know, with education to the public, that's the big problem I keep hearing. And I didn't even know how many police officers we had.
Okay.
I need to get educated.
I think this resolution will give the department heads an opportunity to discuss that and explain that. And we'll move forward, put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Just a little history.
Yes.
Just a little history on the budgeting. I remember one year when the council, the department heads, and the city were at such odds that the then mayor, Brian Rhodes, sat in his office for one whole day and did the entire budget himself. Brought it to us, everybody approved it, and that was it. So
They approved it.
yeah. Just a little bit of history.
Well, nowadays it takes a whole lot of us to put it together, and I think
Yes.
the clerks and the department heads, everybody that works on it does a fantastic job. Discuss a resolution authorizing mayor to sign contracts. Discussion.
I thought you already had that, dude.
Well, I think there was the discussion that was supposed to take place was, do we need to do a resolution every time, or can they just authorize me just?
And that was something that's come up several different times.
Right.
And I believe at one point, some of the council members were like, well, why are you wasting time with the resolution? So we've taken a motion and allowed that to go forward. There are some times that I will have maybe federal contracts that will require a resolution showing that the mayor had the authority. So, you know, and I said this, I think the last meeting when something about that came up, if the council wants a resolution every time you need to sign a contract, something authorizing it, I have one in the computer. It's no big deal. I can prepare them. If they want to do it as motion and just continue doing it that way, that's fine. If we have to have an actual resolution, then, like I said, for some federal contracts, then yeah, you know, I can prepare them. I can do them all the time. It doesn't, I mean, I don't really know why it came up because that was discussed already a couple of weeks ago about the way to handle that. So
is it possible to have a blanket resolution that would cover everything, except some peculiarity?
You could. I mean, I think probably what some people may be thinking or concerned about is if you just have a blanket resolution, then the mayor's just out there signing stuff and nobody knows what's being signed, possibly. I don't know if that's what the problem is.
And I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it.
That would be a problem.
Right.
Yeah, most of the time, Bill always, I mean, if there's something going on, he always explains and, y'all make a motion and you move on. If the council wants a resolution every time, then I can do a resolution every time. And the thing, I got a contract from the airport or something, some of the COVID grant money, and it actually requires, the government, the local body to approve the mayor to sign it. And so, like I said, on those, there's going to need a resolution or something like that. So like I said, it's in the computer. It wouldn't take me that long to change it to reflect each contract that he needs to execute duty.
Other than that, other than what you're how many contracts are we talking about here?
Sometimes a few, sometimes a lot.
Right.
Just,
it was like solid waste contract was up this year, so that needed to be done. Extending our engineering contract, that came up this year. So sometimes we have them and sometimes we don't.
I would be in favor of just the mayor if he has to sign a contract, sign the contract. Unless, like you say, there's some federal or state reason to have council sign off on it. Other than that, to have to go through it every time just seems a waste of our time and waste time.
I agree.
Just get it done.
So, like I said, I would feel more comfortable at least bringing it to council during the council meeting and just having a motion and go. Micah?
That's how I recall the discussion on last time. Their consensus was he already had the authority to do it, so he's just kind of make us aware of it, make a motion. Was there any difference between renewing an existing contract and starting a brand new contract? Does that matter?
Like for the engineering part of it, there's a clause in the contract that allows us to extend it another period of time. Do you want to speak on that, James?
Well, I was gonna say a lot of times if it's a new contract, particularly if there's any state or federal funding involved, they'll require a resolution of support passed by the council. So if it's a new contract and there's public money involved that are not ours, we generally have to take it to council, not for the authorization to sign it, but to council to say, hey, we support this and we want to do it. We think we can fund the match. So a lot of times, if it's a new one, the council has to be made aware and vote on the resolution well before a contract would have to be signed.
And I think that contracts are vetted by the department heads, by you, James, by the attorney, and by the mayor to begin with. And if we have another layer of vetting in that, is that necessary, like Tom says, or is it a waste of our time? So I think we need to take a hard look at that. I mean, it's already going through a lot of folks.
Yeah.
and if it's a contract that's going to require it, then I would go ahead and prepare it without even really asking, because it would be necessary. So it would be there with the agenda.
At the end of the day, it's an administrative role, which is your role. So I don't think we need a resolution.
Okay. I'm good with that. Okay, we went through this agenda pretty good. Yeah, Tim.
I just want to make sure and clarify, because most of what I talked about when I was up there with the street closure was the street closure. And I don't know if you need to take action to release the people, the liquor license holders to be able to serve liquor within the barriers on the street like we put out. And I just wanted to make sure that was included, or if you had to make some stuff.
So, do you want to explain it to everybody up here exactly?
Yeah, what I mean, how this idea was born and how I honestly got involved was with restaurants and bars at 75%, giving them the ability to serve themselves to 100%, 5% or whatever, given the fact we're probably going to have more people. Instead of packing a bar full, you're allowing them to come out, exempt the open container rule within a contained area in front of the license holder's business. And we'll work with the license holders to make sure that stays in there, you know. And, I've had conversations with Chief Wells, James, and Rebecca on ways to do it, and we'll follow those rules properly. But I just wanted to make sure that if you guys if you have to have a separate vote on that, or rather than hand not, well, we got to just close the highway.
Where you at, Micah?
I say that we don't need to vote on that. I'm good with that.
Just waive it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Or waive the open container.
Yeah.
Rob, are you in favor of waiving the open container?
Yeah, I got skipped on the contract thing.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that's what a council is for, is to keep track of what kind of contracts the town is signing, is my thoughts on that. Open container, yeah, it sounds like it's contained to certain areas, and I'm sure that each bar will police, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. We're into the public comment part of this. Sherry?
Public comment?
Yes, we're in the public comment. Sherry Weimer's going to speak.
Sherry Weimer, Red Lodge Area Chamber, 48 Remington Ranch Road. I just have some fun information I wanted to pass along concerning wayfinding. After over 2 years of working on this project, along with the planning and fundraising, the first signs are going to go up tomorrow.
Awesome.
Nice.
So hip hip hooray. I will do a formal presentation and thank you to everybody, especially the city and James, all the time you've logged in to make this happen. The groundwork that Mr. Bushnell put in to make the big signs go up has really been a wonderful process. But it's finally happened. We'll get the press involved and do some things tomorrow to really make this fun. So I wanted to let you all know we're finally there. Yay.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Great.
And I have one other. I have enough big thing to.
Let's go through the public comment and then.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
Okay. Any more public comments?
When's the next meeting?
July 14th.
So it'll be like.
Is that gonna?
Any other public comment?
Hello, this is Elliot, 16 Fountain Park.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Hope, I Hope was going to chime in here, Hope Smith, but she may have needed to leave. So I will paste this into the chat, but and you'll receive it by email as well. But on behalf of an emerging group of members of the Red Lodge community dedicated to public trust based on transparency and accountability in matters related to the Red Lodge Police Department, we appreciate the ways that our requests presented at the June 9th council meeting have begun to be addressed. Thank you, Mayor Larson, for the public statement and other perspectives shared in your open meeting on Friday, June 19th. Thank you for disavowing the opinion expressed in a Facebook meme by a Red Lodge police officer and for indicating that it, quote, in no way reflects the city or the RLPD's position or goals, end quote. Thank you for indicating that you and Chief Wells will continue to create opportunities for public conversation to build public trust. Not everyone feels welcome or comfortable in past venues. We look forward to reimagining new strategies to engage voices currently not at the table, allowing for more inclusive and open dialogue on longstanding issues. Thank you for expressing your willingness to add power dynamic training for Red Lodge Police, offered by the Domestic and Sexual Violence Services, as this is a standard that the Fire Department, EMT, Hospital, and Sheriff's Office regularly and annually engage in and have done so for years. We look forward to the Police Department being held to a standard on par with the rest of our community emergency public services. Thank you too for your 2 response letters to us dated June 18th and 19th, sent to us, care of me, While the details are helpful, please know that there are still legitimate questions that relate to accountability systems and police culture that fall outside of confidential personnel matters that are still unanswered. As checks and balances are a key cornerstone to a democracy, we look forward to receiving those answers. Thank you for acknowledging that the standards contained in the stated mission of the police department. We look forward to working with you, the council, and the police department to assure that these standards, along with the police values, code, and canon of ethics, are reviewed and upheld in ways that are transparent, impartial, and accountable to the whole Red Lodge community. Thank you for your commitment to add items to the Red Lodge City website that will give the community greater access to a variety of public documents. We are glad to see the budget already posted, and we look forward to assisting in any way we can to make other items we have discussed available as well, specifically the formal complaint, the most current police policies and strategic plan, and details as to how to file a complaint and what an investigation entails. We recognize that building public trust is a work in progress. We have a long way to go, and while we have not received a full response to our requests, we appreciate these steps that you have taken thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Any other public comment? Any more public comments? Lori.
Well, I have some good news. On the 4th of July, we will be having a flyover, and it will be a tribute to Wally Zook. And it will not just be one plane or two planes. It could be as many as 4 or 5 planes doing a flyover at 12 noon on the 4th of July. They'll come from Mount Maurice, go north along above Broadway. I think that's absolutely wonderful for all the people up there at the airport to comply with my request to honor Wally Zook by having a really wonderful flyover. Wouldn't it be swell if we had 5 airplanes fly over at noon? So get your cameras ready.
All right. Any other comments?
That made me think of a day on the golf course. Wally, they were flying in formation, him and Bo, and tipped me over backwards trying to keep an eye on him. It was spectacular.
All right, we'll call this a meeting then. If anybody brought any refreshments or anything, please pick them up.